Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I just again appreciate your leadership in holding this hearing. And I also want to thank the witnesses and appreciate each of them being here today to discuss building and maintaining the best possible facilities for our troops, whether at home or deployed, and their families. And I want to just pause a moment and sincerely thank you for what you have done. You have made some enormous strides, and oftentimes we're so focused in the limited amounts of time that we have on where we're going tomorrow that we really don't step back and just say how much we appreciate what you have done and how you've gotten us to this point. So I want to make sure I'm thanking you for that. But then, Mr. Chairman, I am a bit frustrated with the budget that the Department has submitted. And while we need to hold this hearing in preparation for our subcommittee markup next week, we've been given incomplete information at best. And while it's not the fault of any of our witnesses, transparency has certainly not been an adjective describing this budget process, and we can and must do better. It's difficult enough to properly consider a complex military construction budget under our compressed schedule. Worse, we have no future year's defense plan or a FIDEP to help us understand future intent. Finally, and most disturbing, major Defense Department decisions announced after the budget was locked will require budget adjustments, and detail on these adjustments is still not available, at least not available to us. And while understandable to some degree in a new administration, many large decisions have been pushed to the Quadrennial Defense Review, or QDR, leaving us in a quandary about what is real and what has changed in the budget request. For example, the Secretary of Defense's recent decision to limit the Army's BCT growth to 45 rather than 48 brigades calls into question the Army's military construction program. Even though the Army finally identified the brigades that will be lost, the ultimate BCT footprint is still undetermined, pending QDR review of restationing 2 BCTs from Europe. The reality is that the Army cannot articulate with any precision how the fiscal year 2010 budget request should be adjusted. In addition, the Deputy Secretary of Defense delayed the Navy's earlier recent decision to homeport a nuclear aircraft carrier at Mayport, Florida, pending the outcome of the QDR. While I support the Department's review of the decision, the Navy still has requested funding that could be used in furtherance of making Mayport a carrier home port. It's difficult for me to support a legitimate request to have another East Coast port in a storm when I know that it could be used as a down payment for the unnecessary expense of making Mayport a nuclear carrier home port. There are equally vexing unresolved issues involving the basing of joint strike fighter squadrons around the United States due to pending environmental reviews, the Marine Corps realignment from Okinawa to Guam, and the Department's brinkmanship on completing BRAC moves in a number of sites. This budget also defers a number of land acquisition challenges. Even without a FIDEP, we know that the Navy wants an outlying landing field for Oceania-based aircraft squadron. The Army wants to acquire more training land in Colorado, and the Marine Corps intends to acquire large tracts adjacent to 29 Palms Marine Base in California. Each of these actions is important for the readiness of Army, Navy, and Marine Corps units, and each comes with considerable public concern or opposition. All of these acquisition and basing issues are sensitive national security and local matters, requiring the considered judgment of Congress in possession of all the facts. But we don't have the facts, nor do we have transparency. Instead, we are asked to approve a budget funding decisions that will be revisited during the QDR. Mr. Chairman, I think it's fair to expect that we will make modifications to this request unless today's witnesses are prepared to resolve some of the questions I've posed. Our constituents rightfully expect us to understand the consequences of budgets we approve, and I don't believe we have what we need to approve this request. But once again, to all of our witnesses, we recognize the great job you've done up to this point. We thank you so much for that. Mr. Chairman, once again, I just thank you for your leadership and your direction, and I yield back the balance of my time.